music. Music. Football. Footballers are more like pop stars in their own right these days. Football and pop music have always been kind of interlinked, but football and classical music? For most people, classical music and football means Paul Gascoigne crying to Pavarotti singing Nessun Dorma during their World Cup run that gave the whole nation a semi. However, you might be surprised to discover that football and classical music have crossed over more times than you might have imagined. So, here are the top 7 times the crazy world of classical music has crossed over into the beautiful game.
Edward Elgar and the world's first chant.
Edward Elgar was a massive fan of my team, Wolves. So much so, he would ride his bicycle from the Malvern Hills to see a home game, which is about 4 hours away. Elgar could also lay claim to writing down the first ever football chant too, after he saw the line, "He banged the leather for goal" in a match report, and then he wrote this.
Fun fact.
Jermaine Genus introduced this segment on the BBC One show and didn't get injured.
6. The Berlin E9.
I got thinking about this topic after Rafael Benitez got sacked from the Everton job and Duncan Ferguson temporarily took over. Now, wee Duncan might not be the first person you think of as a classical muse, but you'd be wrong. Finnish composer Osmo Tapio Rahala wrote this 12-minute epic called the Barlini 9, 9 being Ferguson's shirt number, and Barlini being the Scottish prison Ferguson served a brief sentence in, controversially for headbutting a player during a Rangers match.
But that is certainly a booking.
We all remember the Premier League games with no fans because of COVID, but even after that, if you still doubt the power of music to influence a football game, consider this. The Barlini 9 premiered on the same day Duncan played in, scored and won the FA Cup with Everton in 1994, where he scored the only goal. So it's never a waste of time singing for your team. Even Everton.
5. Roy Hodgson and the Opera.
Roy Hodgson has got a new job at Watford, and it's been rumoured that he's been offered £1 million if he can keep them up by their eccentric Italian owners. But this isn't the first time Roy's had an unusual Italian contract. Roy managed Inter Milan for a short spell in 1999 as a favour to the Inter president Massimo Moratti. Instead of asking for money, however, Roy asked for tickets to the opera at La Scala instead. So don't forget, Watford fans, it's not all over till the fat lady sings.
4. Brahms' Vuvuzela Concerto.
Remember the World Cup in South Africa? Well, so do these guys, who take playing the Vuvuzela very seriously indeed.
Michael Nyman's final score.
Modernist composer Michael Nyman is a big Queen's Park Rangers fan. He's composed many football-themed pieces, including this one, called Final Score. In a meeting of musical minds that possibly nobody wanted, here is Nyman's final score alongside Mark E. Smith reading the football results.
Chelsea 3, Newcastle United 0. Liverpool 3, Portsmouth 0. Manchester City 0, Blackburn Rovers 0. Sunderland 1, Aston Villa 3. Tottenham Hotspur postponed. West Ham United 1H.
2. Shostakovich's Football Ballet.
Despite being called FIDEL 500, I'm really glad I did not live in the Soviet Union in communist times. If you were in a band and you wanted to play live, you had to play in front of some sort of X Factor panel first in order to get permission to do it.
Except the panel was made up of colonels from the Red Army who'd tell you to get your hair cut and play something they liked.
Classical music in particular was highly prized by the communist regime, and so composers like Shostakovich were often equally praised and denounced throughout their careers. Shostakovich was a bit of an obsessive man. He would post letters to himself to check how well the post office was doing. But his biggest obsession was football, declaring the game as the ballet for the masses. His diaries are full of league tables and the results of his team, Zenit St. Petersburg, whom he invited to his place after a game once. He was also a fully qualified referee. Did football influence any of his music, however?
Fun fact.
The Golden Age is a ballet about a Soviet football team who go on tour to the decadent and corrupt West, the central piece actually being called Football to boot. He was also commissioned to write a football-themed piece full of Beria as well, which for some reason isn't performed as much these days. The Golden Age, however, was not well received in the USSR and was banned for being a bit too modern and not Russian enough. Thankfully though, we live in a world today where the Russian government don't do this sort of thing anymore.
One. Nessun Dorma Italia 90.
After seeing Tardelli's famous World Cup winning goal celebration in 1982, a BBC producer called Philip Burney had the brilliant idea of using Nessun Dorma for the 1990 World Cup titles on the channel. While the aria and the football are inextricably linked in the public consciousness now, it was a very different story back at the time, and the BBC needed some convincing that football fans were not going to get spooked out by it. I certainly would have liked to have been at the meeting where they decided this, a bit like how I would have liked to have been at the meeting where they chose the music for the film Jaws.
Okay, Stephen, I think I've fulfilled the brief and it's got everything you've asked for. Action, suspense, it's a real thriller minute, okay? Now get ready for this.
Anyway, Nessun Dorma became a worldwide phenomenon and has been used many times again in the football. Perhaps the weirdest for me is the time Andrea Bocelli came and sang it at the King Power Stadium in Leicester after their remarkable Premier League triumph. Well, that's my list. If you can think of anything better, weirder, or more interesting for this list, let me know in the comments. I'll leave you with the sage words of William Shakespeare.
If music be the food of love, play on. After a VAR check. Ta-ra of it.